Hello, hello everybody. It's Ivo from Netgen, and we are doing one more webinar. And today we are talking about Netgen Layouts architecture, and also what is new in the version 0.10. Welcome everybody. Although it is the last week before Christmas, I hope you are still let's say, interested in learning new stuff. So let's start. About me again, as usual, co-founder of Netgen, and we are a web agency, roughly 20 employees. We have a lot of experience in various easy published and easy platform products, and also Symfony. And with layouts, it's also a situation where we are a technology provider for other web agencies as well. So there's roughly around 10 other agencies that are starting to use our technology and also layouts as well. So one additional note, we are very soon to release the information about Web Summer Camp in 2018. So stay tuned about that. Okay, so before I go to talk about the architecture of layouts, let's just quickly repeat what is layouts in very short descriptions. So basically, when someone asks the question, what is Netgen Layouts? This is kind of, in summary, what we are trying to explain them. So first of all, we invented an acronym which is called the Layouts and Block Management System. So why is this? Why did we call it like that? So let's try to explain it. So when we talk about block management on a layout, that's basically page building. If you think about it, and if we talk about layout management, then we think about site building. So it's a combination of a page building and site building. And also what is quite important to note is that it's also, I don't know, someone would call it a rendering engine and someone would call it a view layer of a certain backend system. So this is the let's say the shortest explanation that I can give you to explain to someone what is layouts. And it's also a extensible and customizable platform which is based on Symfony PHP. Now that's quite important before we start talking about architecture, is to understand this. What is the system all about? It's much easier to explain what is a CMS because there are already CMSs out there and e-commerce systems as well. But layouts is a bit specific in that terms. And also the general idea is to make life easier for site builders and maintainers. This is basically a persona or a role which might not exist in certain circumstances per se. It's more like a role that a developer or a UX designer or a project manager takes at certain points while building or maintaining the site. But it definitely exists. It's about making life easier for chief editors or power editors when they want to prioritize content and place it in right terms. It also helps translator to translate layouts and blocks in a bit easier way. And it also makes life easier for developers so that they can extend and customize and integrate a bit easier for a typical layouts project. And how is layouts different from other systems? That's quite important as well. So it's built for custom and complex projects, and this is completely opposite from systems like Squarespace or Wix or Webflow, which are completely on the other side of market. They are cloud-based solutions, very simple to use, but also very limited in feature set. And with layouts, it's about trying to resolve the 80% of use cases and then just make it easier to extend and integrate. That's why it's suitable for more custom and more complex projects. It's also different because it's about controlling all pages of the website. That's why it's not about only about landing pages or just about home page. It's about all website pages. That's mostly different from other systems as well. It's not what you see is what you get. That's definitely important. We don't impose how will the front end look like. It's very easy to replace the whole complete markup on the front end. We just instruct the front end how will the layout be structured and where are the blocks, but the rest is completely customizable. And it's also backend agnostic. Most or a lot of other systems, especially the ones that are integrated into other CMSs or e-commerce systems, are obviously deeply integrated into it, and Layouts is about being independent from any backend. So now that we covered this, let's say the basic part on what is Layouts, let's try to explain the architecture. So currently we have this diagram as a work in progress. So it's still not the final version, but I think it's enough to explain what the Layouts is. So if we take the red things, this is basically what Layouts is. So it sits on top of Symfony. It has some let's say core part with the user interface, which is being used by site builders and editors and translators. It also has some typical or standard features like blocks and queries, etc. It also has some standard templates like block views and layout templates, etc. This is all customizable in green. So green are like custom features. And then we have in yellow what we call the backend integrations. So these backend integrations could be tightly coupled with systems that are based on Symfony as well. So like Easy Platform or Cilius, but they can also be integrated with something which has an API. It could be a headless CMS, or it could be whatever you need to integrate. So the most important thing here is to understand that we have the CSS and JavaScript and front end in front. So this is the custom part as well. And when the request comes, it will go to Layouts, through Layouts to Symfony, etc. Or that's why we left here the space on the left side. You can actually just bypass it. So if you need to go straight to the backend or even straight to Symfony, it's very simple to just bypass Layouts. And what I also wanted to explain with this diagram is that front-end development is something that lives in the templates and in the CSS JavaScript, and the backend development lives on the customizing of queries and blocks and backend integrations. And in between, we have also these personas like site builders and super editors and translators, which are using the UI, and they are controlling, for example, which block will use which query and which block view will be rendered inside of which layout type and stuff like that. So this is basically the simplest architecture diagram that I could imagine at this point. We will later take on the questions, so let's move on. So just to give you why is this architecture usable, or in which cases it's usable. So what we noticed in first, I think we are around 12 or 13 projects which are already running in production. For example, for portals, media portals and websites like that, it's about being very flexible or where the content will be positioned. That's very important for these portals, and which kind of queries you want to use in which blocks, etc. Multi-sites, that's definitely about reusability of layouts. So if you have several layouts which you want to reuse across many sites, that's definitely one reason. And also about quick site building. So if you need to add additional site that you're actually can reuse all the layout structures and all the blocks, etc., and quickly assemble one more additional site. Content-rich sites, that's about, for example, for big companies or big organizations, which they have a lot of content, and you want to reuse that content. So the reusability of these blocks is much easier if you control it with layouts. And definitely, if you have multiple backends, for example, CMS and e-commerce, you want to integrate both backends into one front layer or one rendering engine, then it's doable. For example, in one use case, it's not just about CMSs or e-commerce. It could also be, for example, integrating Google Analytics, showing the most popular content from Google Analytics and stuff like that. So definitely easy to manage many backends. And of course, it could also be a use case which we also start to explore right now is being a head for headless. So if you have a headless CMS or any kind of headless backend, layouts could be actually the head of that system. So it's kind of it complements the headless backend. For example, one of the sites that we just launched a couple of weeks ago, a media portal, we already have quite a good grasp on the performance. So we serve 40 million pages per month, which is not that huge, but it's definitely not something that you can just install and it will work. You need to take care of the performance, and it works very well with all the caching options of layouts. It also has configurable landing pages and a lot of ad management and handling spikes in traffic with very tuning of caching strategies per block and stuff like that. And we use with layouts we use complex tag-based queries. So there's a lot of content which is tagged, so we can very easily assemble landing pages with different tags, related content, etc. And we also control the caches on the blocks very easily. The other use case it was also launched a couple of weeks ago. It's a global company, and it has quite a lot of content and a lot of country-specific websites. It also has a large editorial team, a lot of multilingual content, etc. And with layouts, we are solving these complex translations of all these layouts and labels and content which is not living in the CMS, and also maintaining all these different layouts across different country websites and different languages. So it's kind of just helping to manage all this complexity. And regarding the integrations, I also just want to mention that, as you might know, it's integrated with Easy Platform as a backend integration, a tight backend integration, and this is what we use so far on all projects. We implemented also the tight integration with Cilius. So there's actually first project starting with one of our partners, which will use Cilius and layouts integration. We also have a proof of concept implemented with a contentful headless CMS, and we have a small internal project that is just starting. So that was regarding architecture. I also would like to go through the version 0.10 new things that might be interesting to you. So I identified, let's say, five topics. In previous versions, we were mostly, or we were always focused on one big topic. For example, with 0.9, the main topic was translation of layouts. With 0.10, there was more about several medium features that were just prioritized based on current projects. So, for example, I will explain. So, for example, AJAX blocks, supporting better AJAX blocks. It's not a really huge feature, but it was very important to kind of offer the even more independence on the block level. So, for example, if you have a block which shows several items, and if you wanted to show more of those items, you would need to, before 0.10, you would need to somehow implement paging on the main controller or on the main page. And this was, of course, not optimal. So to do this, what we need to do is refactor the collections so that the collections are now paged. And before that, the paging was on the query level, and that's why we needed to switch it to collection level. This depends on how you know layouts so far. So query is something that is fetching content from a backend, and collections is a bit of abstraction because we need the ability to also mix the items that are fetched from a query with, for example, manual items. So if we want to mix it, we also need to page it on that level as well. And what we also provide is an AJAX endpoint. So I will later show you in a demo how this works on our demo site. And what we also built is a couple of AJAX, generic AJAX blocks like lists and grids. And they basically have two options. They either have a load more functionality or they have a typical paging functionality. So this is already being used on several projects which have the necessity of having AJAX blocks, load more and paging. So this was one topic that we implemented. The other one was also very important, is export and import of layouts. The main use case was how to transfer layouts between instances. So, for example, if the project is already in production and you need to work on staging to produce several new layouts, and you want also to show it and test it, etc. And then once you are done, you just need to transfer them from a staging or testing instance to a production instance. So this is a use case that we wanted to solve. This is still something that the developer needs to do, but at least it needs to be very straightforward for that. So what we implemented is a command line support and an interface support for exporting of selected layouts with all the blocks. This I will show later as well. And it basically dumps everything to JSON format. And it also references all the external items like CMS content IDs or something like that. It's referenced via remote ID. So if you are transferring a layout with the blocks and with all the block items, and then to another instance, if there is a remote ID in that instance, it will be connected. And we also have a command line import of layouts. As you notice, we don't have the interface supported import of layouts. It will probably, or it will surely come, but just in this use case, we think it's still a developer tool. So we still want to kind of test it out on projects and how it works. So it basically, you just need to take the file and put it on the instance where you want to import and import it. what is very important to note, there is no sync support. So basically, when you import a layout, it will always create new layouts. Of course, in the future, we might consider also doing a sync support, so you can actually change the existing layouts and then, while importing, actually merge the new changes, but that's quite complex. So what we wanted to support now is these simple use cases where you're creating new layouts and then import them to production or to the master instance. I think this will usable in any case as well, because even if you want to change existing layouts, you are still able to do it. You just import all those changes as a separate layouts, and then the layouts need to be mapped to a URL anyway. So what you would just do is then after you import them, you just try it out on mappings and then switch the original layout. So it's kind of, it's not the full solution, but it should still help quite a bit. I will show you later this. Design theme support. This was also quite important if you have projects with different markups, frameworks on the front part. So what we did is we isolated all the block and layout templates in separate bundle, which we call Block Manager Standard Bundle. And all the markup there is Bootstrap 3 based. This will be obviously replaced in the near future, either with Bootstrap 4 or maybe even CSS Grid or something like that. But the point with this is that it's now easier to replace all templates with your custom bundle. And in our case, what we did, for example, with the integration with Cilius, we have a Cilius bundle, which is using semantic UI because the Cilius front end uses semantic UI. So this was quite important, medium level feature as well. Then we had several smaller UX improvements, and I think this was quite important. So we have additional options when saving a layout. We have a publish and continue editing command, and we also have a save, draft, and close. This was quite needed in everyday work. You just when you do changes in the layout, you just want to publish it, but stay in the interface, or you want to save the draft and close. So it should be quite handy. And the other one, for example, is if the caching is not configured, I mean the front HTTP cache is not configured, then all the caching options are also disabled. It quite makes sense as well. So this I will show as well in the demo. And the last is easy specific integration improvements. So basically there are two. One is additional filtering options. This was required or this was suggested by one of our partners. So we added the ability to filter in the standard easy query to filter per sections and also per content object states. And the other one is also already being used on several projects, is the new query for filtering. We took the standard easy query and then added additional tags filtering options. There are basically, what you can do is filter it in two ways. One is by manually picking tags on which you want to filter. This is the simpler use case. And the other use case is if you want to use the tags which are coming from the context, basically from the content which is being shown on that page. I will also show it on the demo. So let's try to switch to just a second, to another share. Just a second. Let's exit. Let's share my screen. Just a second. Still need to figure out how this works. Okay. Okay. So what you see here is the typical demo of layouts. You probably saw that before. So let's switch to the interface. So first, what we discussed is about let's say the export and import. So if you are on the layouts list, there's an additional button here, and when you click on it, you select the layouts you want to export, and then click download, and that is basically it. You get a JSON, and then this JSON needs to be transferred to the another instance. In this case, I already did this before the webinar, so let's actually just a second show the show the terminal. So I'm now on the instance of this what you see in the browser. So basically, what I would do is go to the typical so it's called Symfony console, and again, block manager import. What I'm importing is the layout, and then I have this JSON which I exported before the webinar of those two articles. And I will do the importing, and it will, if there is no errors, I will get the importing. So if I'm now going back to the browser. So if I switch, a second. Just a second, wrong sharing. Okay. So if I'm going back to the layouts, and if I refresh, I will see those two layouts imported and when they are imported, and that's basically it. And then I can start changing the mappings and whatever I need to do. So that was about importing and exporting. The next feature, let's check the home layout. So what we had is the AJAX functionalities. So if I'm on the grid block, I have a typical dynamic collection with a typical easy query, etc. What I also have is design, where I define which template is used as grid, etc., etc. But I also have this new feature which is called enable paging, and I can enable pager. I also have additional options: load first page via AJAX, which depends on the use case, but more or less. And I also have the load more. But what we will try to do is try to show it with a pager. And this is the small UX improvement I already mentioned. So now I can publish and continue editing. So I will just save it. So once I go there, and you can see here there is no paging yet. So if I reload the page, I will see the paging, and this is AJAX based. And what I can also try out is load more. And if I go to publish and continue editing, if I reload the home page, I will get load more. and it's easy to implement your own custom AJAX-based blocks, because the paging of this collection is handled on this level, and now you have these new options, offset and limit on the page weight. So I can also increase or decrease the numbers of items on the collection. So it doesn't matter how many items are manually picked and how many are dynamic. What is important is that with this limit, we limit the actual shown items per page on this block. So this was regarding AJAX. We also showed the small UX improvements. I also showed the export and import, and what I also wanted to show you is filtering by section and filtering by object state. So filtering by section is typical. It's also it can be also done with multiple sections, so it works. And regarding the object states, I have only one object state here. But what is important is that you can, of course, select more object states. In this case, if you select both options, it basically means you will select everything. But what is important is that if you have more object states, then the logic between different object states is not and, it's or. So you can combine several object states and filter the content with this. So that's basically it. So let's go back quickly to the slides. So this was about version 0.10. So not a lot of big features, but a lot of smaller and medium sized features, which were very important for all the current projects. Regarding 0.11, we are already working on this version, of course, and this time we have again a big topic, and the big topic is focus on improving the ad hoc and teaser blocks. So let me shortly explain what it is all about. So this is basically also coming from the priority of all projects. So there's a need to handle ad hoc content on the pages. It could be teasers, it could be blurbs, or whatever the name is. It's small pieces of content which are not reusable across more layouts. It's mostly about having these small pieces or chunks of content only on the layout that is that you work on. And the usual use case is that you actually don't have that content beforehand. You build it while you are working on that layout. So what we want to do is improve the user experience there, so that you can actually create that content on the fly in some way. So this is something that we are working now, and that will be the big feature of 0.11. That's very usable on most of the projects, especially on projects that are, let's say, company projects where you have a lot of pages that have chunks of code that, for example, if you have a product page and you want to emphasize what are the good points of your product, and then you have usually some chunks of content that are not existing on any other layout, you just have it on that page. This being said, we also need to be we need to take care of the persistence of these chunks. So it will be possible that we actually save that content on the layout level, but also on the backend level as well. So we have these two use cases in mind as well. So of course there will be more smaller changes and improvements as well, but this will be the focus. And that's basically what I wanted to share today. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature of Zoom, and tell me what, if you have anything, any questions, or if I need to elaborate more on the things I showed today. I will wait for a minute or two if you have any questions. If you don't have any questions, you can also write on the chat, we don't have any questions. Looks like everybody understood everything. Oh. Okay, first question from Samuel. Is Netgen Layouts ready to be translated / multilingual? Do you mean the interface of the layouts itself, or you mean the ability to translate the layouts instances? I'm not quite sure. Do you mean the layouts interface itself? Aha, the interface. Well, it's a very typical Symfony application, so we didn't have any requests so far. Well, presumably we will need to check that. I think it should be very straightforward. As a typical Symfony instance, we use the typical Symfony ways of how you translate the interface. Maybe there might be some obstacles there, but I can check and let you know later, but should be straightforward, yes. Any other questions? Looks like, aha, okay. Okay, I have one more note, but it's actually not a question. Okay, okay, one question. Did the integration with Cilius, was it open sourced? Not yet, not yet. But it will be eventually open sourced. So not at this point. We still want to try it out and make sure that it also works in real use case. So far it's been implemented, but not proven, let's say. So once it's proven on at least one project, then we will consider to open source. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, I think that's more or less it. Of course, if you have any additional questions, you can always reach me on various channels. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully we will, if we are not partnering yet, maybe we will partner on the next projects with layouts, I hope. Also, I will take the opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and to all others that are not celebrating Christmas, all the other Merry holidays as well. And thank you and goodbye.